I'm going to go through a series of slides, and whichever screen, I hope they'll be visible enough, so whichever way you want to look, I'll talk to that screen because that's the one in front of me. In terms of the products, and I will talk about the timeline, as you said, Sandy, this is a very exciting kind of moment because we are sort of reaching that sort of point of conclusion in certainly the part that we've been involved in. And you can see there's some quite substantial products that I think have been produced through this. So it started with the community profile and benchmark analysis that was produced in May. We had the think tank scenario-based workshop in June, and I know a number of people here were part of that. That's been published for quite a while. There's the portal, which I'll come back to in a moment. And today we're producing or talking about the community engagement report, which is our summary analysis of all the community engagement, and then talking about the vision and the strategic plan. So that's sort of laying out the roadmap going forward. I do want to make a note about the portal. So I'm sure a lot of people going, when do I get to see these reports? Well, at about 3 o'clock, they're going to be posted on the portal, right? So they'll be there available to download. And there will also be a survey that you can take that I will talk about towards the end of my comments here. The portal does have all the data now loaded, and I know many people have been looking at the data visualization platform. That's actually a much richer source or insight into the community commentary than the engagement report, because it's a more static presentation. In the portal you can tease it out, but I want to sort of walk through some of the functionality of that. So I want to start with the community engagement report. So this is really trying to sort of put a ring fence around the community dialogue from the get-go up to and including the reconvening of the think tank in December and the focus group sessions we had. And to the amount that we can possibly do realistically in a report, we have included the summaries of all the discussion. One of the things that was the mandate from yourselves as the Vision Project Management team, open and inclusive and transparent. So in the spirit of that, we have written a long report, but we have tried to structure this so that you can go to references and see what people said in different parts. You can see what different focus groups said, what different conversations were about, and see how that conversation evolved through the course of the project. And I want to do, if I could, Sandy, just for people, not everybody may have been right through the whole process, I want to just sort of recap on some of the methodology, but quickly, right? So we want to get to the guts of it. So obviously the sort of structural relationship of this whole process, it's been hosted and initiated by the Town Council, so they're at the top, the Public Planning Committee, that's ultimately where this ends up. At the bottom, I know it's not intended to be in any way sort of hierarchical, but the bottom is the public at large, right? And that's really been the big driver in this discussion. It has been the opportunity, which many of you took the advantage of, to have your voice into shaping thoughts about the future. So that covers the think tank, the surveys, the engagement workshops, focus groups and so on. And then at the operational level, it was really the collaboration between the Vision Project Management team providing guidance, the town staff doing a lot of the heavy lift on logistics and material preparation, and then Future IQ as the consultants who designed and facilitated much of the process. So to recap on the timeline, sort of left to right, we started in March, run through to today, 15th of February, 16th of February. And we went through some basic large steps there, which was the initial research. That was when the benchmark report was produced. We did the think tank, as I mentioned. Then we moved into the community engagement and workshops, which was August to October. The reconvening of the think tank in November, December. And then obviously the work we've been doing since is to make sense of all that. That diagram shows you the products at the bottom and the major steps of community engagement at the top. So the bottom pieces are reports or portals that have been produced as this. One of the things that I think is a really good feature of this project, if I could make some comments like that as I go through, is that this has not been a black box, process. This is not where you all had a say and it disappeared into a box and then out the end pops. We're committed that you can draw a direct line between your comments, whether it was made back there in June or wherever, and you can draw a line and see how that materialises or connects into the final component. That's why there's so many products out of this because we wanted to absolutely honour and reflect your contribution. Because I think, if we're going to talk about a vision that's looking out to, decades into the future, this is going to be your resource material to come back to, and to think about as you go through implementation, not to lose all those ideas that came up in the discussion, but be able to kind of revisit those and build those into thinking going forward. Just so then at the level of metrics, this just is some of the sort of high level of the input. The larger circle there was the community surveys. We had over 2,500 people start that. The vast majority finished it. But, that represented, some thousands of hours of community input. And starting at the top, I'll just run through that so it's sort of logical, although it's not actually sequential. There were the kiosks and the open town hall platforms that the town staff provided. We had hundreds of responses in those. Quite honestly, the responses were interesting, but they're not really substantive, and that sort of process is not designed for that. I mean, that's just, somebody dumping an idea into a box, right? You're not, it's not a PhD going into the box. It's a top-of-mind idea, but that was all captioned. We had a number of focus groups in December and more recently, which was key sort of target groups that came together. The reconvening of the think tank, we had 130 people. That was for a sort of afternoon and evening. We'll talk about their work today. The community engagement sessions was one of the big kind of backbones of this. We had 24 workshops. Close to 1,000 people attended those workshops, and they were typically sort of an hour and a half to 2 hours long. So that's a really substantial community turnout. Had 150 people at the think tank workshop, and we had just on 700 very detailed surveys completed from the community engagement. And those mechanisms were either people who did it at the workshop or took it home and handed it in, or some people did it online. We provided a couple of different accesses for that. But that's the numbers. On any measure, that's a really solid engagement process. I mean, even on a community of this size, and I think you should really applaud yourself for being the kind of passionate people who turn out, right? So, and we'll talk more about that in a little bit. In terms of the data, one of the things, as I said, we were very committed to a sort of a transparent but usable data set. So as you go, if you haven't been on the portal, as you go there, you'll be able to look at all the data about the profile of respondents and look at different cohort views, and that's just one I grabbed as an example. The community engagement report is full of these sort of metrics in terms of age breakdowns and where people live. So that's a great resource. Then in terms of the focus groups, which we held in December, there was focus groups around sustainability and environmental resilience. We had restaurants, resorts, recreation, entertainment groups come together, faith-based philanthropic community group, focus group, education, Native Islander and Gullah Geechee focus group, real estate, gated communities, construction. So sort of big broad buckets, right? And that helped us add a little bit more depth to the discussions that were coming out of the reconvening of the think tank. So, and their comments are reported in full in the community engagement report. You can go to it's pretty much laid out in a sequential order, so you can go to the back of that and see what they said.